Malcom stared into the mirror. Gone was the man he knew. In his place stood a toddler, small and confused. A diaper hung loosely around his waist. It had all happened so fast. 1 minute he was a man in the prime of his life, the next he was a child again. The youth serum. It had worked, but perhaps too well.
He had to reverse the process. The antidote sat tantalizingly on the coffee table in the hallway.
What had he done?
Malcom heard the familiar rumble of his wife's car pulling into the driveway. Panic surged through him. He wasn't ready for her to see him like this. Not yet. He had to hide. With surprising speed, he scrambled towards the bedroom door, his little legs carrying him faster than he thought possible. He slammed the door shut just as he heard his wife's key turn in the lock. He was safe for now.
Malcom pressed his ear against the door, listening intently. He heard his wife's footsteps, light and familiar. She was home. He had to get to the antidote, and fast. He reached for the doorknob, his chubby fingers fumbling with the latch. It was so much harder to do even the simplest things now. His adult mind was trapped inside this tiny body, a frustrating and terrifying experience. The doorknob slipped from his grasp. He tried again, his heart pounding in his chest. He had to get out. He had to reach the antidote.
As he struggled with the doorknob, Malcom felt a strange sensation spreading through his body. He was shrinking, not just metaphorically, but physically. His clothes felt looser. His diaper slipped down his legs, pooling around his ankles. He was becoming a baby. Malcom tumbled to the floor, the full force of the transformation hitting him. His limbs shortened, his fingers curled into tiny fists. His vision blurred, the room around him taking on a strange, distorted quality. He could hear his wife moving around in the living room, her voice a soothing melody that did little to calm his growing fear.
He was now a helpless infant, his adult mind trapped inside a body that could barely crawl. He lay there on the floor, tears welling up in his eyes. He had gone too far. What had he done?
His thoughts swirled in a dizzying mix of panic and regret. He had been so focused on reversing the aging process, on regaining his youthful vigor. He had never stopped to consider the consequences, the sheer absurdity of his actions. Now, he was paying the price. And the worst part? He had no one to blame but himself. The bedroom door swung open, flooding the room with light. Malcom looked up, his vision still blurry. He saw the silhouette of his wife standing in the doorway, her brow furrowed in concern.
Malcom, honey, are you in here?
Her voice was laced with worry. She stepped into the room, her gaze sweeping across the space. And then she saw him, or rather what he had become. A gasp escaped her lips. She stared down at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. He lay there on the floor, a helpless babe swaddled in an oversized diaper. His bottom lip trembled slightly, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek.
Oh, Malcom, what have you done?
Malcom wanted to speak, to explain everything, but the words wouldn't come. He could only gurgle and coo, his attempts at communication reduced to infantile babble. He watched as his wife knelt beside him, her eyes softening with a mixture of amusement and concern. She reached out a tentative finger, gently stroking his cheek. He leaned into her touch, a wave of longing washing over him. He missed her touch, her warmth, the feeling of her hand in his. It was a painful reminder of all that he had lost. As she gazed down at him, a slow smile spread across her face. She seemed to understand somehow that he was still in there, trapped inside this tiny, helpless body. And to his surprise, she didn't seem angry. Intrigued perhaps, but not angry, but not.
Don't worry, my love. We'll figure this out. We always do.
Malcom watched his wife's face. Her eyes sparkled with a mischievous glint. She had an idea. He could tell by the way she was looking at him, like he was a fascinating puzzle she couldn't wait to solve.
You know, I've always wanted to experience motherhood again.
Malcolm's eyes widened in alarm. He tried to protest, to tell her that this was a terrible idea, but all that came out was a frustrated squeal. His wife just chuckled, mistaking his distress for baby babble.
Don't you worry your little head about a thing. Mommy's got this all under control.
And with that, she carried him out of the bedroom, her laughter echoing behind her. Malcom, trapped in his infantile prison, could only watch in dismay as his wife embarked on her week-long adventure in baby care. An adventure that he, unfortunately, was going to experience firsthand.